This is CBC Vancouver News.
A fatal highway crash overnight leaves one person dead and another airlifted to the hospital. Also,
we can't really rent out a place for too long, so that's difficult. But I'm glad to know we're fundraising and we're putting an effort to make a new church.
Building back step by step. After a devastating fire, a congregation's efforts to rebuild their church while continuing to serve the community. And electric innovation to help cut down carbon footprints.
Electrification is the idea of making people make the switch off of fossil fuels onto technology that uses clean electricity.
From electric cars and planes to gadgets for your home, we'll show you the latest tech on display in Vancouver. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Baneet Braich. We begin with a fatal highway crash. One person is dead and another was airlifted to hospital after a collision on Highway 1 Friday night. Langley RCMP say officers were called around 9:40 p.m. after a tow truck hit the rear of a tractor trailer heading eastbound near 267th Street. Mounties say the tow truck driver died at the scene. The passenger was flown by air ambulance to hospital. And the highway near Langley was closed overnight. RCMP are investigating the cause of the collision. And in Kelowna, RCMP say they have charged a man in relation to a hit and run, which led to the death of Kelowna teen Tristan Seagar. Police say Seagar was 15 and died after he was struck on October 21st last year. Now Mounties say 30-year-old Brandon Kazakov has been charged for dangerous operation causing death, failure to stop or remain at the scene of an accident, and assault with a weapon. Kazakov was arrested on September 6th and will be brought before the courts. And last October, police said the collision was related to a bear spray incident near Ben Lee Park in the city's Rutland neighborhood. However, they did not specify how they may have been linked. Seagar's death prompted an outpour in grief. Many remembered the teen as wise and beyond his years. CBC News did reach out to his family today, but they were not immediately available for an interview. And RCMP say the investigation is ongoing. And BC Ferry says one of its vessels will be out for about 6 months. The 60-year-old Queen of New Westminster is needing repairs because it lost a propeller which was just pulled from the seabed this morning. Officials took the ferry out of service earlier this week. The incident also saw about 800 liters of oil spill into surrounding areas. But BC Ferry says that type of oil disperses quickly in the marine environment. Meanwhile, all of its sailings up to September 30th have been canceled, and BC Ferries is looking to shift those trips to other boats. And a First Nation in Northeast BC has put a $50,000 reward for information as it continues to search for a missing woman. 57-year-old Karen Tessier was last seen on July 9th near Fort Nelson. She is a member of the Fort Nelson First Nation. Community members have launched numerous searches for Tessier, and today the RCMP have also launched a tip line. Almost a week after her disappearance, her black Dodge Caravan was found in a rural area outside Fort Nelson, and her small dog, that's Soma, was then found wandering loose in Prophet River about an hour away. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Northern Rockies RCMP or Crime Stoppers. And it's been 3 years since community members lost a St. George's Coptic Orthodox Church in Surrey to arson. The congregation was left to rely on other churches, schools, and community centers. But now efforts are all in to build back. Dozens of people took part in a fundraising walkathon in Fort Langley today, and CBC's Pinky Wong has that story.
With every step, church members come together, raising funds to build back their community church. In 2021, the St. George Coptic Orthodox Church in Surrey was destroyed by a fire. A 35-year-old woman was charged with 2 counts of arson in connection with the incident and is now in prison.
The icon of the Lord Jesus and the cross. So many things, valuable things in our church and the old church. All of this burned down. We have a great loss, but we forgive her and pray. We are praying for her.
The congregation has around 300 families. They are now hopping between different venues for their gatherings and hope to build back soon.
We can't really rent out a place for too long, so that's difficult. But I'm glad to know like we're fundraising and we're putting an effort to make a new church.
We serve in not just the Egyptian Orthodox community, but also the greater Vancouver community as well. A lot of marginalized communities. We serve the homeless, we serve Syrian and other Middle Eastern refugees.
It's a lot of things that we miss, you know, but yeah, it brought the community together and it made us value our church too.
This is the original site of the church where a fire burned down the building that had been serving the community since 1998. Now the new church would be rebuilt at a different site in Surrey. Members hope to fundraise $5 million in addition to selling off the original site.
When the church was burnt down, we did receive some money from the insurance policy, but it wasn't enough to rebuild what we had, nor was it enough to rebuild what we wanted to build, which was a bigger church for our growing needs.
The church expects to get the rezoning application approval from Surrey City Council on Monday. After that, construction is expected to begin in mid-2025 and to be completed by 2027. In the meantime, these families say efforts like this are a step closer to new beginnings for their congregation. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Fort Langley.
And a commercial greenhouse has been completely destroyed after a fire broke out early this morning in South Surrey. It happened just past midnight behind the Art Naps Garden Centre on King George Boulevard and 44th Avenue. Surrey Fire Chief Larry Thomas said no one was injured, and since there were no fire hydrants nearby, crews had to shuttle water in on trucks. The chief says the blaze was extinguished in less than an hour, and the cause is under investigation, but Thomas says crews did not report any suspicious activity. The Regional District of Bulkley-Nechako says people in a remote area about 80 kilometers south of Burns Lake, BC, should be prepared to leave on short notice. It comes as fire behavior at the Utsa Lake complex west of Quesnel has grown since Friday. The district has issued alerts for the Mount Wells wildfire and the Sabina Lake wildfire, and smoky sky bulletins have also been issued for parts of central BC. Air quality advisories are in place for Prince George and Quesnel, and BC Wildfire Services says that the recent hot weather over the last few days has made much of BC's unseasonably dry as well. And there's been a baby boom for one of Canada's most endangered species. It's the Vancouver Island marmot. Now, researchers say they counted 86 pups born in the wild this summer, and that's the most on record.
We're pretty ecstatic to see this number of pups, and they're just in everywhere. You know, we've got about 17 different colonies where marmots have produced pups this year.
So why the increase? Well, he says favorable weather has helped for breeding in the wild, but experts caution the survival rates for these pups still remain low, largely because of predators. And there needs to be a few more years like this before the species is out of danger. And this weekend, Vancouver is hosting an exhibition featuring the latest in electric technology. It all comes amid growing demand for electric vehicles to home energy solutions. And CBC's Saurabh Sandhu went to see all the new innovation on display.
The latest in electric vehicle technology is on display in Vancouver this weekend, with over 60 of the newest electric cars available to test drive.
Whether you're here for cars, trucks, buses, boats, and we've even got a plane.
But the event is more than just EVs. There's also options for your home. Glenn Gordon and his team specialize in home charging solutions for condos and strata buildings.
We think everything's going to be electric, and so we really built our system around not just the now, which is electric vehicles, but the future, which is heating, cooling, obviously, hot water, everything in the building.
I'm more interested in energy storage, both for the home and commercial use.
We have a small population and we've got cheap electricity.
And for those looking to become self-reliant for meeting their energy needs, there are other options like solar panels.
People are electrifying their house more and more. You know, they're getting the electric vehicle, they're getting the heat pump. And this is just where solar is a really great offset for all of that electricity you consume.
Organizers of the event say they have noticed a greater appetite for electric energy solutions in BC's market, with British Columbians looking for more ways to reduce their carbon footprint. BC Hydro estimates currently there are about 170,000 electric vehicles on BC roads, which they estimate will reach 900,000 by the end of this decade.
Here in BC and Vancouver, we see the most demand and most interest in what we do.
BC Hydro says the uptick in demand for electric energy is in line with their forecasts, and despite last year's drought, they remain confident of meeting the increased demand in times to come.
We're adding Site C, which is currently having its reservoir filled in northern British Columbia. That'll add about 8% capacity to our system. We also have a call for power underway, which will add more solar and wind resources to our network, and that'll add about 5% supply.
Power that will be key to keep up with the demand in homes to BC's highways. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still to come, should landlords have limits on how much they raise rents for small businesses? We speak to one BC councillor calling for more relief for local shops. Stay tuned for that. For small businesses, rising rents can be a growing problem. It's why some are calling for more measures to protect small businesses. I looked into one tool being explored, commercial rent control.
It does, yeah. I think it's like high in there. There's some...
Here on 12th Street in New Westminster, Charming shops and flavorful local restaurants are at the heart of the neighborhood. But
in cities that are growing rapidly, that are densifying, we see more and more chain stores, and we want to really retain the local small business feel.
with more development, soaring land values, and rising rents, some, like Councillor Henderson, are calling for commercial rent control as a way to protect small businesses from big rent hikes and really help preserve the charm of neighborhoods like this. The idea is to limit how much landlords can charge or increase rents for businesses, similar to residential rents.
I have this here.
For Albert Kamba, 12th Street is where dreams come true.
This is me, Albert Kamba.
That's your name?
Yeah.
What's the story behind this?
We can do it too.
You can open your dream?
Yes, we can. I'm very proud of this, and I'm proud for the community too.
12th Street is an older neighborhood, less developed, mostly single or two-story shops. That's why it's been more affordable for small businesses like Kamba's. While his barber shop is bustling, Albert worries about the future. He says his rent has risen 60% since he opened in 2006.
Now we scared a lot, really tough. See you next time. But what are we gonna do? We just keep going.
Up the street, Kamba has a new neighbor. Catalyst Kinetics has bought this space. The group of chiropractors, physiotherapists, and other health practitioners was priced out from its formal rental space in Burnaby. The CEO says their rent doubled twice in 13 years.
Significant rent increases are tough to swallow.
In February, New Westminster Council passed a motion from Henderson. It asked the province to give local governments the authority to allow special economic zones where small businesses' rents can be protected.
Why are we allowing landlords to pass down the costs to small businesses? There could be an opportunity to create some sort of cultural designation for areas like this that have significant cultural importance. Bean stew, cabbage rolls, you just don't find places like this anymore.
The BC government acknowledges pressures on small businesses, but says there's no plans for commercial rent control right now. And there are some who don't favor commercial rent control.
Just a drop in the bucket, frankly.
Stefanico says if commercial rents are limited, landlords may not invest in retail spaces, worried about a return on their investments. He says this could mean fewer spaces to rent and less maintenance.
The root of the problem really comes back to how expensive it is to run a small business in BC these days.
From labor, delivery, supply costs, and then factor in property taxes. Experts say tenants, especially in older single-story businesses, are hit hard because they're taxed based on the property's future potential. Many times, small businesses have to cover those costs. The government says it has been working to reduce taxes for small businesses. A new law last year offers property tax relief to those who qualify. And another question is, how do you define a small local business? Well, mom and pop shops can be locally owned, so can chain restaurants.
Deciding, well, who would this commercial rent control apply to?
He says most landlords want their tenants to succeed, and it's important to find other balanced solutions. Now back on 12th Street, some are doing just that. Catalyst Kinetics is now a landlord, renting to 3 other tenants, and they hope to keep those rents affordable.
I think we owe it to the community, we owe it to small business to do what we can to support them.
More reasons why some small businesses want more tools to help keep local stores open and thriving. And the BC government says that Councillor Henderson's motion may be debated at the Union of BC Municipalities Conference later this month. And Lebanon says an Israeli airstrike has killed 3 paramedics. It says they died responding to an initial attack amid Israel's ongoing clashes between Hezbollah. And it's accusing Israel of targeting them. It came as the Gaza crisis entered its 12th month. In Gaza today, officials say Israeli strikes killed 28 people. They say 2 schools sheltering the displaced were among the targets. Israel says both compounds were serving as Hamas command centers. Now, Gaza officials say the total number killed since October is now approaching 41,000. And the UN is urging a full investigation into yesterday's West Bank death of an American protester. Local media say 26-year-old Aizenur Aiziagi was attending a protest against Israeli settlement expansion and was shot by Israeli forces. Now, Israel says it is looking into the report, and today's UN statement says civilians must be protected. The U.S. is also calling for investigation, and the woman's family wants the U.S. to conduct its own independent inquiry. And a small town in Quebec is dealing with a big story. 20-year-old man was arrested in Ormstown earlier this week, suspected of planning an attack on a Jewish center in New York. The CBC's Idil Musa reports.
As a small Quebec town wrestles with the arrest of a man accused of plotting an ISIS-inspired terror attack, security experts are warning.
It's a call to action for all our law enforcement and intelligence organizations and everybody to remember this is an ongoing problem because the world has not been able to deal with the underlying issues that motivate individuals like this one.
On Wednesday, the RCMP arrested a 20-year-old Pakistani national in Ormstown, Quebec, about 20 kilometers away from the U.S. border. According to a statement issued by U.S. Attorney General Merrick B. Garland, Mohammed Shazeb Khan is alleged to have planned a terrorist attack in New York City around October 7th, the first anniversary of Hamas's deadly assault on Israel, with the goal of killing as many Jewish people as possible in the name of ISIS. U.S. officials say Khan, who was living in Canada, had been under surveillance for 9 months.
I would argue that CSIS and the RCMP, perhaps the CBSA and other organizations, they probably don't have enough resources because these kinds of issues are arising around the world, and they're complicated by the fact that they now have access to cyber tools.
According to a criminal complaint filed by the U.S. Justice Department, Khan used an encrypted messaging app to discuss his support for ISIS.
Canada needs to take this seriously, and we need to think about the domestic resources. Like, how do we staff our police agencies? Do we need a modern FBI? Because they were using encrypted communications, right? They were using social media. Like, this is not your grandfather's terrorism. This is a new brand of terrorism.
Khan is facing 3 charges in Canada, including attempting to leave Canada to commit an offense for a terrorist group. U.S. officials have also charged him with attempting to provide material support and resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
And here's a Long Beach shot at Tofino. We'll be back right after the break.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox. British Columbia is heading to the polls on October 19th. Keep informed with CBC News for in-depth analysis, interviews, and breaking news that can help you decide the province's future. Download and tune in with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. For news you can trust, stay connected wherever you are with the CBC News app.
And hundreds of people gathered in Cranbrook today for the second annual Edfest. It's the arts festival that welcomes diverse artists across the Kootenay region. And as CBC's Corey Bullock reports, it's also home to a giant elephant puppet named Ed.
It's not every day you see a 16-foot elephant puppet marching through the farmers market, but that was the case in Cranbrook Saturday for the community's newest arts festival.
It's a free festival, which is something that we really love. It's something that we feel really belongs not just to us and to the organizations that put it together, but really belongs to the community as well.
The inspiration for the festival came from the story of Charlie Ed, one of 14 elephants that got loose in Cranbrook back in the 1920s when the circus was in town. Ed became famous after being on the run for 6 weeks. And puppeteer Marcel Derage says his version of Charlie Ed is only getting better with age. This is the second year the Cranbrook-based artist has put his giant puppet on display.
Second year has been more like, let's see if we can make it to be more interactive, more dynamic, that he can move more and be more touching people and be more inquisitive and mischievous.
This year he made it so Ed could turn around freely.
You have two pedalers that they pedal each side of the body, and if you want you can go one forward, one backwards and rotate 360 on the spot.
And while the giant puppet is a spectacle, Derage says it's about more than the puppet.
Encourage children to be in the arts, and then for the grown-ups, for the ones that make decisions, hopefully they will see that this is a community that's vibrant, that wants to be creative and wants to be digging and introspecting in themselves into be creative.
And festival organizers agree.
Even in a small town like Cranbrook, like what artists can be capable of, what unbelievable things that artists can do.
Derage credits grants from local organizations for making the festival possible.
And if it was not for that, I couldn't do it, full-time job. I'm an artist on the side. I do it because I love it.
From potters and painters to dancers and musicians, all forms of art were on display at Edfest, and artists like Derage hope to continue the tradition for years to come. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Okay, so more than 5,000 cyclists took over parts of the Sea to Sky Highway competing in the RBC Grand Fondo Whistler. Take a look at all the bikers on the Lionsgate Bridge this morning, eventually making their way to Whistler for the finish line. This event is a collab between RBC Grand Fondo and YWCA Metro Vancouver's Gear Up program. The programs give people opportunities to train as bike mechanics, removing a barrier to working in the industry. And that is your late news for this Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. For news at any hour, you can always go to our website, that's cbc.ca/BC. Good night.